Welcome to another Smith.ai Masters Series. I'm Maddy Martin. I'm the Head of Growth and Education for Smith.ai. We are a 24/7 virtual receptionist and web chat service for small and medium businesses, primarily lawyers, financial advisors, IT professionals, marketing agencies like themselves, and service-oriented businesses. So Sherry and I got connected and very excited to have her here today. Sherry Bonelli is the owner of Early Bird Marketing, and she is going to be talking about Google My Business power plays to dominate local search results. And to give you a taste of the topics that are under this massive sort of umbrella, we're going to be talking about not just claiming your listing and optimization strategies, but down to the nitty gritty. So the importance of posts and content ideas and best practices, what happens if your profile gets suspended, or if you think you want to maybe help someone else's false profile get suspended, why you need to frequently check your listing, business naming rules to follow, the categories for your business and why they're important, and then how to get assistance with your GMB or Google My Business question. So there's that and a lot more in store for us today. So without further ado, Sherry, please introduce yourself and let's hear a little bit about you before we get started.
Great. Thank you, Maddy. My name is Sherry Bonelli. I'm with Early Bird Digital Marketing. I'm so excited to be here. As Maddy said, this is a huge presentation. So if I go a little fast in some areas, please bear with me. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to try and stay within the hour. If we go a little long, hopefully you guys will stick with me. If you have questions throughout, please post them in the chat, Maddy, if you can keep track of them. If you want to stop and interrupt me, if there's like burning questions that you see, feel free to stop me. I'm happy to answer those questions throughout. I just don't want to get off the rails too much.
Got it.
But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if we all want to get started. Can you see my screen right now?
I can't yet, but I'm sure I will momentarily.
There we go. How's that?
Got it. Perfect.
Awesome. Great. So this is basically how we're going to get you guys found with Google My Business. And if your agency's offering Google My Business services is probably one of the best things you can do if you have local clients. So as Maddy mentioned, I'm an SEO and digital marketing specialist. I've been in digital marketing for 23 years. I got started out with my own e-commerce business, selling pregnancy and baby related products. I'm also a Google My Business Gold product expert, and I have a master's degree in digital marketing as well. So it's kind of fun too. I write or have written for all sorts of the top SEO related websites. And I've spoken at a lot of the top digital marketing and SEO related conferences as well. I won Search Engine Land's SEO Contributor of the Year Award in 2018. I'm also a SCORE mentor. So you will see some Grow with Google slides in here because SCORE is a partner with Grow with Google. And so you'll see some of the slides in there thanks to Google as well. So how to show up in search with Google My Business. That's what everyone wants to know, right? We all want to show up high in search results on Google. And you need and want to be on Google because that's where everyone is searching. So 3 in 4 people who conduct a local search on smartphones related to businesses, they visit those businesses within 24 hours. So that's a huge thing. And where everyone wants to be is in the Google Local 3-pack. And for those of you who don't know what that is when someone does a search for a local business, like a plumber or a restaurant, and then they typically either Google knows where that business or where the searcher is located, and they just assume the city name, or you actually enter city name if you're like traveling on vacation or on a trip or something. And so that is what the local 3-pack looks like. It's underneath a map, and that's a good example. So that's the 3-pack. Or you can show up in the local finder. So if you click on more places, that will take you to even more listings. So that is what we call the local finder. You can also show up when you claim your GMB listing on branded Google searches. So if you have a unique business name, you can show up for branded searches. If you have a very generic name like Atlanta Mechanics, more than likely you will not show up for branded searches because you have too generic of a business name. But if your name is unique, you can show up. Your knowledge panel, which is what this is on the right-hand side of the screen, will show up in branded searches. So that's very cool. And Google My Business, I really tell people it's almost like your new homepage because there's so much information you can put on there that people almost can make a decision on whether or not they're going to call, click, stop by your place of business just from the information they find there. So it's almost like your new homepage. And you really do need to be where customers are at, and that's either in front of their computer or more than likely on their smartphone or tablet these days. So Google makes it so easy for people and customers and clients to find very detailed information about your business on the fly, right in front of their faces, and so they can make purchasing decisions or buying decisions right where they're at. And that's where you guys need to be at. And Google has created the GMB program not only for local businesses, but also for searchers, because Google at its heart is a search engine. And I hear businesses all the time maybe complaining about, well, how can customers upload photos? Or why can users change my hours? Or how can they change this? Google is not just about the businesses. GMB is about everybody. So Google wants that input from users about businesses. So you don't own your listing. A lot of businesses are like, it's my listing. It's Google's listing, right? And so it's about the searcher and the business. It's kind of a pairing of the two. So just keep that in mind as well. And every business that qualifies for a Google My Business listing, gosh darn it, you better claim your listing and you better keep an eye on your listing as well. Now, on the screen, there is a link that takes you to Google's guidelines for representing your business on Google. This will tell you whether or not your listing qualifies. So, for instance, online only businesses, you do not qualify for a Google My Business listing. If you are an Airbnb and you just rent out your home for, those purposes, you don't qualify. So there are certain businesses that do not qualify for a GMB listing. So before you go through that claiming process, read through these guidelines to make sure that you qualify, because otherwise your listing will eventually be taken down. So you want to make sure your business qualifies. So with regard to you'll hear me refer to it as GMB profile, Google My Business listing, those types of things. But Google is where people find you, and your GMB profile is where you start. And the knowledge panel is, you'll hear that term a lot. Up-to-date profiles are 2.7 times more likely to be considered reputable. So if you have a profile with current information, current reviews, a current post, customers are going to think of you as more reputable compared to a listing that doesn't have updated information. Now, if you're looking at a smartphone, this is kind of the anatomy of a knowledge panel. You get an overview, location, hours of operation, photos, videos, reviews, tons of information about your business. And if you have a physical location, like a storefront that people can come to, you can also show up on Google Maps. Now, service area businesses, we'll talk about them in great detail. They do not show up on Google Maps, and that there's a reason for that. And we'll talk about that. But you can also show up on Google Maps if you have a physical storefront or location that customers come to.
Sherry, can I just interrupt you for a moment? There's a
Yes.
ton of questions. I don't know if you can put that link to check qualifications in the chat if you have it handy, but there was a question specifically about a business coach, if they would qualify.
Yeah, so business coaches, so let's just start out with this. Google My Business is for local businesses. So if you coach local people, yes, you can. If you run your business out of your home, and let's say you go meet your clients at their place of business or meet them at a coffee shop at your hometown or whatever, yes, you can claim a listing. Now, if you don't meet anybody locally, or you're only virtual and you just do virtual stuff online and just meet them via Zoom, you wouldn't be able to claim a listing. So hopefully that makes sense.
Okay, I will share, Sherry, that Smith.ai does have a Google My Business profile, and we're fully remote. There may be also some virtual law firms, I think, that have, a Google My Business profile. So there may be ways perhaps to, if you have an anchored business office or something like that, I'm not sure if that's something that you've seen, but in our experience, we've been able to have a profile.
Right. Yeah. So the main thing is if you can see, for instance, I would say, in my case, 2/3 of my clients are local. The rest of them are all over the country. So as long as I have some clients that are local, I'm able to claim my listing because I do meet with them, at coffee shops or at their place of business. So sometimes it's just to pick up a check.
Right. And actually, so we had someone just comment, thank you, Kathy, who said, she's got a virtual firm with a Google My Business profile and basically had to verify through her home address that she's a real person, even though that's not publicly exposed on the profile.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to talk about service area business. And that's what a service area business is. You hide your address, but there is information you have to provide to Google to prove that you're a legitimate business, especially if you suffer from a suspension, which we'll talk in detail about as well. So I think a lot of the information, Maddy, we're going to cover a little bit later, but yes, I can't put that. I can't put that link in later. But if you do a search for guidelines for representing your business on Google My Business, it'll pop right up, but I can put that in later.
Perfect.
Okay. Yep. So there are tons of features. As Maddy and I were talking before we got on, Google My Business used to be name, address, phone number, like, online directories, like Merchant Circle. It used to be name, address, phone number. That was pretty much it. But Google has added so many new features, and this is just some of them. This isn't even all of them. But along with that, there's more things that can go wrong. There's more complications. There's more confusion. And so as a product expert, I'm on the help forum a lot. And we see, merchants all the time coming in with just a ton of questions. I can't change my phone number. My information is in pending. Why is it in pending review? I didn't get my PIN postcard. What do I do? So there's a lot of things and a lot of questions that people have. And so hopefully this will help answer some of these questions. So I'm going to go through the claiming process pretty fast. Hopefully you guys already have your listing. If you don't, this is here. Maddy's recording this. And so you guys will be able to watch this later. Here is the guidelines for representing your business. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, you can go ahead and do that. I don't think I can copy and paste it from here unless I shut off I can do that, I suppose. Let me do that real quick. So we can get it in chat while we're here. Oops.
And Sherry, are you also willing to just share the deck afterwards?
Oh yeah, I can do.
And I'll share that with everyone too.
The deck I would rather not share.
Or like a PDF of it.
Yeah, hang on for 1 second. Let me put the Q&A. Why I don't see chat right now for some reason.
You can send it to me in a direct message if you see that.
I see Q&A.
Email it to me and I'll post it in, but the chat's on the bottom. Anyway, it's okay. We can share it.
Oh, here it is. I got it. There we go.
Awesome.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, so let me go back to presenting. All right. So these are the guidelines, and there are a ton of guidelines. Now, what I tell people is this: don't read the guidelines and never look at them again. Google updates these guidelines frequently. And the stinky part is sometimes they update one line, and that one line can impact whether or not you are doing things correctly. So for instance, they updated a line recently about co-working spaces and whether or not service area businesses can use co-working spaces. So that impacted whether or not they can use co-working spaces. And the answer is no, you can't. So there's, things that they change. So I always tell people, go through and read these guidelines, because if you're at fault and you get your listing suspended, it's not Google's fault, it's your fault. So go through, bookmark this, this document and go through it frequently. I would say at least once a month to make sure you're in compliance. Now, there's a couple different ways you can claim your business. So you may be able to do a search for your business name, and you may be already indexed by Google, and they may already have a knowledge panel, but it hasn't been claimed yet. So what you can do is click Own This Business and then follow the steps that are given to you. That's one way to do it. So your business listing will look real generic. It'll just probably have a map, and then that's probably it. Maybe like a Google Drive picture maybe, and that's it. So you can click own this business and go through those steps. But if you don't get that, what you can do is go to google.com/business and sign in using a Google Gmail account. And if you don't have a Google account, you can create one by going to this link and sign up for a Gmail account. Then what you can do is enter your legal, I always say legal or official business name. Okay. Generally, what I tell people is if you have an LLC or you filed something with the Secretary of State, make sure that your business name matches whatever you filed with the Secretary of State as much as possible. So if you have an LLC, but that's not the name that you represent yourself under, make sure you file a fictitious business name under the name that you do represent yourself under. Because again, if you get suspended, you need to have documentation to back up your business name. So your name may appear in the drop down, which means that you're indexed by Google. If you see that it's there, go ahead and click on it. If your business doesn't appear, you can go ahead and type your business name in and you'll be able to add it. Now, when I'm talking about official business name, don't add any additional keywords or descriptors. So Big Tex Gym is right. Optimum Gym South Tampa, not right. Okay. So don't add any words like the city name, any words like for chiropractor, don't add Dr. Jim Smith, chiropractor. Or if you're a realtor, don't say Susie Smith, best realtor in town. Don't add those types of things. So you cannot add any descriptors that violates Google's terms of service, and you can get your listing suspended for that. Here's another example, Amanda Brandt. She adds her realtor name. When you are a practitioner, so let's say you're a lawyer at a law firm, you're a realtor at a real estate agency, you're a chiropractor at a chiropractic office, you're a dentist at a dental practice, you could only use your first and last name as your business name. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So basically what I did is I suggested an edit and got rid of realtor, Coldwell Banker or Coldwell Realtor, and my edit, Google accepted my edit and it was changed to Amanda Brandt, which is how she should have had it listed in the first place. And I'm also going to tell you guys how to do that as well. So first and last name if you're a practitioner. Now the law firm itself and Coldwell Banker Hedges Realty can have their own listing, but anybody that works for that should have their first and last name only. Hope that makes sense. And we'll talk about that in detail. So you may be asked to type in your business name again, make sure it's spelled correctly. Then you're going to want to select your category. Now you can't add categories, so you're just going to want to start typing in. You may want to type in several different categories or different types of businesses that fit what your business does. And the main category is the most important because that directly impacts rankings. So you want to carefully select your first and primary category. That should be the most specific to what your business does. And you can add more categories later, but the first category, the primary category, is the most important one. You can always change it later, but I always tell people to pick the first one the best. Okay, storefronts, we're going to talk about this now. Storefronts can display their address because customers come to their location and Google wants to show them on Google Maps so people can find them. Service area businesses, they go out to customers. So people don't need to know how to find them because they go out to their customers. Service area businesses or SABs, they cannot display their address on their Google My Business listing. So you'll be asked, do you have a storefront or are you a service area business? So the question is, do you want to add a location that customers visit? Yes or no? So if you click yes, that means that you have a physical location and you have to have permanent signage at your location. So you either have to have a sign outside, a permanent sign, or you have to, if you're in like an office complex, you have to be listed on the office directory. You have to have a permanent sign outside your suite number or on your door. It can't just be like a sticker. It has to be something permanent. You have to be able to show photos to Google if you ever get suspended. If no, that means that you deliver goods or services or service customers out at their physical location. So that would be if you run your business out of your home, for instance, then you would select no. and then you would be known as a service area business. So you would select no in this case. If you select yes, then you would go ahead and enter your address. Don't add any extra things like landmarks, or like if you're located in a mall, don't enter your address and then say Lindale Mall, for instance. Don't add any descriptors like that. Simply your street address, city, state, and zip. The other thing is, don't use any fake addresses or incorrect addresses. No PO boxes, no UPS boxes, no virtual offices, no co-working or shared offices. Now, there are some very few exceptions. Those would be if you rent out a virtual office or a shared office and you actually have a dedicated office that you would literally rent out. Your employees, not the virtual office's employees, are staffed inside that office during stated business hours. You have to have permanent signage. There's a whole set of rules for that, and you have to be able to prove it. So if you think about it, Google knows everything. They know where all those Regis offices are at. They know where all the WeWork offices are at. So they know those addresses of those virtual offices. So generally, those are not available for claiming. So if you have one of those addresses, I would just say that you work out of your home and claim it as a service area business. You'd be safer doing that. So if you select no, that is where you would select a service area. So generally, it would be an area that you serve within like a 2-hour radius. And you can select one here, but then you can add 19 more once you get your listing verified. And these would be cities, zip codes, counties. If you're in other countries, I think there are other options, but in the US, it's cities, zip codes, or counties. But for one claiming purposes, you would just add one city or zip code or whatever here. Now, hybrid businesses. Let me take a sip of water real quick. If you entered as an address, it's going to ask you if you also serve customers outside of your location. Yes, you do, or no, you don't. So an example would be a home appliance store. They may also go out and deliver, and they may also go out and service appliances, like your stove isn't working or your dryer's not working. So they may send out repair people. So in those cases, they're hybrid, right? So they have a physical store where people can go and shop, but they also send their workers out to people's homes. So they do both. In that case, if they have permanent signage, they have employees staffed at their physical location during business hours, and they also go out and help people at their homes, they're a hybrid business. So they can show both their physical address and select service area businesses. So they're considered a hybrid. However, if they don't have permanent signage on site, they can't show their address, and they'd be a service area business only. So the signage and having employees actually physically working at that location during business hours, because they need to be able to serve customers at that location, is the key in order to be a hybrid business and in order to be able to display your physical address. And then that link down at the bottom is specifically the help page for hybrid businesses. So that'll give you some more information there. Hopefully that makes sense. Then you're going to need to enter, I always say, a local phone number and website. Google generally likes to see local phone numbers. Now, Google will eventually, after you claim your listing, you can go in and play around with it a little bit more after it's verified. You can add other phone numbers. So you can add a tracking phone number, but one of your phone numbers should be a local phone number with a local area code number. So just make sure you enter a local phone number. I would recommend putting it here, and then once you have verified it with your PIN postcard, you can then go ahead and switch that around. Then you need to verify your connection and press finish. Request your postcard. Always enter your contact name and alert whoever is getting the mail at your office that you're expecting a postcard from Google. It looks like junk mail, and so they often get tossed in the trash. So make sure that whoever is opening the mail knows that it's coming. It generally arrives in about 5 to 7 days. And so it will give you a pin on it, and then you will just follow the instructions, log in, enter your pin, and then you should be good to go, and you're verified. Now, what I tell people is this: avoid making any changes to your GMB knowledge or your GMB info section until after you verified, because there have been instances where people have changed information, like they may change their hours or something like that, and pins have been known to not work. And then they have to re-request a pin. So I always say, once you've requested that pin, just sit and hold tight. You can make all the changes you want, after you verified. So wait until you get your postcard and then you can make some changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind with changes, and I'll talk about this, I think, later, don't sit down and make a bunch of changes at one time. Sit down, make a change, get up and leave, walk away. Because if you make too many changes in one sitting, that can trigger a suspension because Google may find that suspicious. So never sit down and upload 50 photos at one time. Don't sit down and change your name and phone number and something else. Make changes at a cautious pace, because those can sometimes trigger suspensions. So just a little FYI and a good tip. Okay. If you don't get your postcard, what I tell people is request another one. There'll be a spot in your dashboard where you can say, I think it's didn't receive your postcard, request verification again. If you still don't get that one, you can then reach out to help, GMB support help, and they can assist you with perhaps verifying another way. So managing your listing, you go to business.google.com. Always be logged in with the email address that you use to claim your listing. So write that email address and password down. And then you'll see something that looks like this. If you only have one listing, then you'll just see one listing. And then you can manage from the dashboard. And so you'll see something that looks like this, where you'll see home, post, info, all these great features. The other cool thing that Google is now allowing you to do is from within Chrome, you can search for your business name and you can make certain edits directly from Google search. So that's kind of cool. The other tip that I find really kind of neat is if you just search for the word my business and type that in the search bar, it'll automatically bring up your listing and you can do edits directly from that as well. So that's kind of a cool tip as well. Now we're going to talk about service area businesses, because I would say that this is where most people get things wrong and the reason why most businesses get suspended. Service area businesses don't have storefronts. They're typically home-based businesses and they go out to customers. They cannot show their addresses. So for those of you out there that work out of your home, if your Google My Business listing has your street address listed, you're in violation right now. And what you need to do is go in and delete your address, and then you'll be prompted to select service areas. And again, try and keep those within a 2-hour drive from your location. Now, I will caution you, sometimes doing that will trigger a suspension. And that's just the way it is. But as long as you have your documentation in order to prove that you're a legitimate business with the Secretary of State, or you have a business license and you can prove that your name is connected to that address at home, then you should be able to be reinstated. But you need to be in compliance. And SABs do not show up on Google Maps. Hybrid SABs, we talked about examples. Other examples would be restaurants. They serve people inside their restaurant, but they also deliver pizzas to people's home. They can list their address and service areas, but employees must be there during stated business hours. They must have permanent signage. Okay. So if you're a service area business, you need to delete your address, and you can select up to 20 service areas. Proper naming, again, do not add any additional words, no keywords, no city names, no extra words that describe what type of business you do. So this is an example of a lawyer, Creasman Law Offices, medical malpractice lawyers. That sounds a little fishy, doesn't it? So when I did a check, he did have that on his website, but how hard is it to change a name on a website? It's really not that hard to do. When you go in and look at the Illinois Bar Association, and most bar associations require lawyers to actually change their name at the bar association first, it's Creasman Law Offices. Okay. So this lawyer is running a great risk of being suspended because he's not following Google's guidelines. practitioners. So again, these are public facing people that have their own clients typically, and they work for like an agency or a law firm or a doctor's office or whatever. So the organization should create their own listing, and then each practitioner should create their own listing. And I tell people that because practitioners can move and quit, and they need to be able to take their listing with them. So the office manager for the law firm shouldn't set up all the lawyers' listings. Each individual practitioner should do that. Now, the title of the listing should be the first and last name. But if you're an MD or you're a lawyer and you want to put Esquire after your name, you can, put professional titles if you want. And then create a single listing. So let's say you're a real estate or an insurance agent and you're the only one at that location, you can do Allstate Joe Miller. So that would be if he's the sole facing person for Allstate in that town. Now, again, first and last name only, so right and wrong, and Google specifically says you can only do that. And again, I love this example. Don't keyword stuff your business name. This one always cracks me up whenever I see it. So don't do what she did. Now, competitors will often keyword stuff their business name to try and get ahead of you. Don't let that happen. Okay. There's ways that you can prevent them from doing it because Google uses business names and sometimes they get ranked higher than you because they keyword stuff. What you can do is suggest an edit. So if you know, for instance, that a competitor is working out of their house and they're showing their physical address, you can go ahead and click on suggest an edit, change the name or other details. Or if you know that they're a service area business, but they're listing their address, you would click on remove this place. And there's an option that says does not serve the public. And that would remove them from Google Maps. So in this case, he added personal injury attorney or personal injury lawyers, and you can go ahead and suggest an edit for his name. And in some cases, depending on how trustworthy you are for Google, Google will make those changes almost immediately. That happens to me all the time. Sometimes Google will review them, and that takes time. Sometimes Google can't prove that your changes are accurate, and they just don't get made. So in this case, my edit was made almost instantaneously. But if for some reason your suggested edit doesn't work, you can fill out what's called a redressal form. And there's the link for the redressal form. This is a more formal process that you can go through to report a competitor that's violating a Google My Business term of service or guideline. And with that, I always tell people to upload photos or documentation that proves it. So maybe a Secretary of State screenshot that shows that their business name doesn't match. Or if you go out and their address is literally an empty parking lot, show a photo of that. Or if their business sign doesn't match their business name, go out to their, business, take a picture of their business sign and show that it doesn't match. You can fill out a redressal form, upload the necessary documentation, and Google has a support team that will manually review these redressal forms. When you're after you become verified and use your PIN, you want to answer all the questions that Google gives you to answer. Fill out as much information as you can. That's what makes your listing valuable, is if it's filled out completely. And a filled out listing looks so much better to consumers and searchers than one that's not completely filled out. And it'll have valuable information that's really going to stand out among competitors that don't have that filled out. Now, one thing you want to make sure of and that you're aware of is, just like I showed you, anyone can suggest edits to your listing, just like you can suggest edits to your competitors' listings. So just be aware of that as well, which is another reason why you should be frequently checking your listing to make sure nobody has done any monkey business with your listings as well. Because as I said, some of these aren't just suggested edits, they can go live without you even being aware of it. And Google
Sorry,
doesn't.
oh, sorry, just one question, if you
Sure.
don't mind taking a quick break, because we've had some questions sort of accumulate. I know we're already going to be short on time, but just a couple that I saw as important. So just to go back on the last thing on redressal forms,
Yep.
do those also work for Google local guides? That was one question that came through.
What do you mean by Google local guides? So a Google local guide is basically just a person. So yeah, you can't report Google local guides if that's what they're asking.
Okay, that might be it. If maybe they had a comment that carries some weight with it, for example.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And then, in terms of checking frequently, would you define that as like, once a week, once a month? I mean,
Once a
personally,
week.
I check once a week. Yeah.
Yep. Once a
If
week.
it, if it's important to your business, anything should be checked sort of once a week.
Yeah. I'll show you an example in a little bit that may want you to check even more than that. But yeah, usually once a
Got it.
week.
I mean, I would also say, like, when I give CLE presentations or any sort of webinar, I say, call your business number also once a week and make sure
Yep.
that it's, making calls go through the way that you expect it to. And there was a follow-up question on the Google local guides. Can Google local guides use that for suggestions that automatic systems can't verify? So maybe this person is a Google local guide.
Google local guides don't have any more weight than anybody else in
Got
those types of suggested edit situations. So for instance, I'm a Google product expert. My suggested edits don't have any more weight than anybody else's.
Okay, and then last question around hybrid. So there were a lot of questions about this. So a couple examples for you to sort of respond to here. One is, my office is in one county, but most of my work is at a location in another county. Am I a hybrid?
It depends. So if you have a physical location that customers come to and you have permanent signage,
Mhm.
but you still go out to other
A
home
courthouse, let's say,
addresses.
where most of the work is done in another
Yeah.
county.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes. So then
Okay.
you could either list the county that you go to or cities within that county. Yes.
Okay.
The 2 hour guideline is just a general guideline. What some people were doing is they were listing the whole state. Like they were listing like counties that were like 7 hour drives. And so Google's guideline was, just try to be reasonable and stay within a 2 hour. But as long as you have a physical address, signage, and employees are there during those business hours, your employees are there during those business hours, but you also go out and service customers, then you are a hybrid and you can show your street address and also service areas.
Okay, one last question and more complex. Law firm with 2 locations, so physical locations, and 13 satellite offices. How would you handle that?
Okay, first of all, I would question this 13 satellite offices. My guess would be with 13 how many lawyers do they have?
I don't know.
Okay,
Uh,
so
Alejandra, if you can respond, and you're still here, then let us know. 6 lawyers.
yeah, so there's no way you have 13 satellite offices. So what you probably have is virtual offices, and those
So
cannot be
you
claimed.
define satellite as physical offices. Okay.
Yeah, so my guess is you're probably looking at suspensions coming down, probably. You can only claim the 2 offices where you have employees staffed during business hours.
So
If you
hybrid for the service areas then.
No, he's not. There's no service areas for that. So if you can only claim physical locations where you have employees staffed.
I
My
see.
guess would be that if you have satellite offices, those are just basically meeting locations and you don't have employee staff there during business hours. So you can't claim those listings.
Well, what if it's an attorney who's in like a satellite home office, for example, and there's
No, you can't.
administrative staff or something in just one of the
Yeah,
law.
employees can't claim home offices.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So only if it's your business, you're going to
Right.
get a home office verification. Got it.
Right. So, and that's important because what they don't want is, for instance, a plumber to have 5 of his employees claim their home addresses and try and dominate, the local 3-pack with 5 or 6 listings. And this sounds like that's what this attorney is trying to do. I mean, I worked with an attorney that claimed literally 60 locations, and they were virtual offices, and they had 10 attorneys in
Mhm.
California. I'm like, dude, you're like making this stuff up. You can't do this. So
Okay. No, hard truth. It's good.
yeah,
Better that you tell everyone here
yeah.
than learning it the hard way, right?
Right, right. And so what you're doing is you're running the risk of getting your two legitimate offices suspended along with everything else. So your best bet would be to contact Google and ask them to remove those satellite offices, which basically are empty offices that maybe you use on a rare occasion to meet with a potential client. But my guess is what the strategy behind it is, you guys are thinking, hey, we'll rank higher in these cities because we have an office.
Mhm.
And that's what people try and do. And that's gaming the system and it's cheating.
Good to know. All right, I'll let you move on. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Great. Yep. So Google asked for contributions. I'm going to move through this quickly. So again, anybody can suggest an edit, and sometimes these go live. I'll give you an example of our local high school. Some kid decided to change the high school website to a porn site, and it stayed like this for at least 24 hours before the school realized it. So people can change anything in your listing without you realizing it. So that is just another good reason for you to be vigilant and check. Now, you should get an email saying that your listing has been changed. So be sure to pay attention to your emails that you get from Google as well. Download the Google My Business app because there are certain things you can do on the app that you can't do on the desktop. Plus, then you'll always have it with you if you're on the go and you get a review, you can respond to that review quickly. So claiming is just the first step, optimizing is the rest of it. And so you want to make the most of your listing, add photos, videos, all sorts of things. Categories. Remember, categories directly impact rankings, so you want to choose them wisely. And again, certain features are available depending on your category. So if you're a hotel, you get really cool features that a digital marketing agency doesn't get, for instance. And restaurants get new features that other categories don't get. So you want to pick your main category to be very specific and then choose additional categories, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. You can pick more, but really there's no point. But you can change them. So, for instance, if you're a landscaper and during the summer you do landscaping work, but during the winter you do snow removal, in the wintertime, you may want to change your main category to snow removal because that makes sense. But just know that if you change your categories frequently, that could trigger a suspension or trigger Google to re-verify your listing. So you don't want to go in and really mess around with your categories too much. So look at the categories, make some decisions and kind of stay with them as much as possible. You want to make sure your business hours are correct. So if you're, had Easter off or Good Friday off, you want to go in and mark those holidays off. Generally do that at least 3 days in advance because sometimes Google will want to go in and verify and double check that. So give at least 3 hours in advance or 3 days in advance. You can have the option to add more hours. Those generally apply to more like restaurants and stuff like that. Business description. Go ahead and add a business description. Don't make it pitchy or, say, hey, we're offering specials. You're allowed 750 characters, but keep in mind that it gets cut off at 250. So put your most important information at the front of your business description. Okay. Short names. These are basically vanity handles that you can use to make people get to your knowledge panel or reviews quickly. And I'm going to show you cool ways to do that. So if you look at these two URLs, the g.page/short name, if you replace short dash name with your short name after you've selected it, the first one you can send it to people and direct them to your knowledge panel. The second one will direct them to leave you a review. So instead of saying, hey, I'd like you to leave me a review, search for my business name, click on reviews and leave me a review, all you need to do is send them that link and it will directly send them to leave you a review as long as they have a Gmail address. So it makes it super simple for people to leave reviews. Opening date. Most people kind of ignored this up until recently. You could add the date that you started your company or the date you opened the location. This is now starting to show up in certain categories within search results. And this can impact a decision on whether or not a consumer is going to pick a business that has been around for 7 years versus a business that's been in business for less than a year, for instance. So be sure and fill that out as well. Products and descriptions. You can add products that you offer, and you can show photos, prices, descriptions, and then you could also add your services as well. And if you don't see a service, you can create your own services as well. Attributes are basically different features of your business. Attributes are dependent on categories. So attributes you see may not be available for some other categories. So they do vary. Black owned, veteran owned, and women led are generally available to everybody, but there are other attributes that are only available to select categories. The safety and health attributes are new thanks to COVID. Thank you, COVID. So is an appointment required? Are masks required? Those types of things. But online appointments, you can set up a link that will allow people to make online appointments. So you can link directly to your schedule calendaring tool, for instance. Posts. Posts are basically, I would say they're like social media posts, but they're a great way for you to promote products that you have, services that you offer. There are different types of posts that you can make. You can make COVID-19 updates, offer events, like let's say you're a realtor and you have an open house coming up, product updates. There's just a ton of ideas. And on mobile devices, customers can actually message you directly through posts that you make on mobile devices if you have the messaging feature set up. Now, posts generally expire after 7 days or after the event is open or over. So you want to kind of keep those posts topped off, and 1,500 characters, but ideally 150 to 350 characters is ideal. There's tons of ideas for posts, anything from a great blog post that you have on your website to events that you have coming up, new products. Is there a holiday coming up? Always include a call to action. Google has pre-filled out call to action. So if you say, call now, it will automatically pull in your primary phone number so people can call you. And that's a nice feature as well. Now, image sizes, 1200 by 900 pixels is ideal. Note that Google crops kind of funny. So if you're going to have text on top of the image, there are guidelines for that too. So you may get a post rejected if you have too much text on your image. And just look at the difference between the desktop versus the mobile. So I generally try and avoid having text on my images just because it does look kind of funky, and sometimes you have to kind of rearrange the images and the text just to make it look good. Adding photos and videos, very simple to do. Just click on photos. But keep in mind that listings with photos generally get more engagement. Google loves engagement, so definitely add photos. And 90% of consumers are more likely to visit a business that has photos in their search results. So you just click on go to photos, click on the plus, and you'll be able to upload photos and videos. You can also set your cover image and logo. I will tell you that Google has a bug right now where photos or where cover images and logos may not go up, and they are working on fixing it by the end of the year. So just know that that's a known issue. With regard to cover images, you can select the cover image. Just know that Google may decide to select another one for you. So just know that they can override your decision with that. Videos can be 30 seconds, up to 30 seconds, and 100 megabyte and 207 pixels or higher. And again, if you go over that, your post will be rejected. The other thing about posts is, and I didn't add it, don't include a URL, an email address, or a phone number in the text of the post. Your post will be rejected for that. Messaging. Messaging used to be restricted just to mobile devices. Now you can do it on desktop, which is awesome. And so you can set up messaging directly from your desktop now, which is so much better than having to like constantly be watching your phone. You just go to messaging and basically select turn it on. Reply to messages within 24 hours, or you may lose the ability to do messaging. Google could take that away from you. There is a read and reply to messaging policy at the bottom of the screen that you can go ahead and do a screenshot of. And I would recommend that you read that. But again, reply as fast as you can. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you have managers or people that are users of your GMB account and they may be replying to your messages, the messages come from whoever is replying personally. They do not come from the business. Now, I'm hoping that Google changes this policy and makes it look like it's coming from the business rather than a personal user. I think that's kind of a flaw. So I hope they change that, but just know that it comes from the person, not from the business when you reply to messaging. So just be aware of that. And then you can also set up messaging on the app by going to your home page on your app, clicking on more, settings, messaging, turning it on, and then you can create a welcome message. And again, Google tracks how fast you respond to messages. My suspicion is they may use that for ranking. I have no verified data, but my thought process is if they're going to show businesses in search results, they would more likely rather show people that respond quickly versus businesses that don't. Now, the other thing that I very much dislike is some cases, depending on your business, the messages will show up as request a quote. And in some categories and cases, Google will actually show your competitors and ask the customer if they also want to get quotes from competitors. So to me, this is a disservice to the business, and I hope they will change this as well. But just know that this could happen to you as well if you're in certain industries or niches.
So Sherry, there's a couple questions that are coming through here, and I just want to be mindful of time.
Yep.
Specifically for this, notifications, are they going to email you? Do you have to have the app notifications on? Is that a reason to have the app?
Yeah, so notifications are a big problem as well. They don't do a very good job of notifying you of messages. Basically, on the screen on your mobile phone screen, they basically show up as a little blip showing that you have a message. And other than that, that's it. And so you have to be really mindful of checking your phone to make sure that there's a message, or you can go into your dashboard and check for messages. We've expressed that they need to do a better job of notifying people of messages. But right now, it's just a little blip on your phone that says you've received a message. So you can go in your dashboard on your computer. That would be the best thing to do, I would recommend. And just check frequently.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Very, very helpful. Another question, if there were two listings, one for a law firm in one location, one for another location of the law firm, basically two offices of the single law firm, can you bring the reviews in? Basically, one office is shut down, just the building shut down, not the law office, merged into the other single office. Can you bring those reviews of the one that shut down into the existing listing?
Reviews, I would say probably not, because they would be considered you would probably want to ask Google, but my thinking process is they wouldn't, because they may have had a different experience, especially if there were different lawyers working at that second office. And so it may have been a different experience for the clients. And so they generally wouldn't want to merge reviews from a different location for that reason.
Okay. So maybe just have a request put in and explaining, the behind that. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to show that the way you guys can reach help in a little bit.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you time for that for sure. And then the other question around locations is, do you use cities or counties, metro area? There's so many options when you sort of type in Los Angeles, for example, you get Los Angeles County, Los Angeles metropolitan area, Los Angeles city. What is your recommendation there? if that is-
I personally like cities because I think that's how people search. So I generally put in cities.
Okay, so it's going to match closest to what the search is. People aren't typing in LA County,
Yeah.
probably. Well, maybe
Yeah.
for lawyers they are, but not
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense. All right, thank you.
Sure. And then questions and answers. So these are basically questions that anybody can ask and anybody can answer. The disadvantages, they do not show up in your Google My Business dashboard. You literally have to search for your business on Google and then answer those questions from within search, which sucks. But it's a great opportunity for you to hear directly from your customer base. Now, the interesting thing is Google will actually use posts and reviews to try and preemptively answer questions. So they're using artificial intelligence to try and answer questions from posts and reviews on your listing to try and answer those questions. So here's just two examples. How long does a claim take? It came up with these suggested answers. What is alimony? Again, it pulled posts from this law firm to try and answer questions for me. So again, another reason to try and get keywords in reviews that people leave for your business, as well as posts. So another two reasons to use that. Google will send you out emails to let you know that a new question has been asked. And then you can also proactively pre-populate your listing with Q&As. The disadvantage is it will show question from the business, answer from the business, but really who cares? And then the other thing is upvoting your questions with the little thumbs up by clicking on that can make them more visible. And so I always tell people thumbs up your questions and answers. Same thing with reviews, thumbs up those. And then again, anybody can answer a question and it could be the wrong answer. Online reviews, great to get reviews. They matter. People think about them. Whatever you do, this is an aside, don't ask anyone to leave a review for you on Yelp. It goes against their policies. Google wants you to ask for reviews, but you cannot bribe people to leave reviews. You cannot offer to enter them into a contest. You can't give them anything free. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. So be sure and use the short name. The other thing you can do from the home pages, you may see a get more reviews box. If you click on that, and you have a short name, that will automatically give you that link to request reviews. And then you just copy that, send out an email to maybe a happy reviewer and say, hey, would you mind leaving a review for me? We'd really appreciate it. Now, if someone leaves a fake review, first make sure it's a fake review and not just a review you don't like. Make sure it violates guidelines. And then what you can do is log into your dashboard, go to the review. You'll see 3 dots to the right, click on it and flag it as inappropriate. I will tell you that Google rarely takes down reviews unless there's a blatant violation. So, for instance, there was one review that someone said the business owner is having an affair with my wife. That review obviously got taken down, but you really need to prove your case as to why a review needs to be taken down. Otherwise, they generally try and stay out of getting in the middle of it. Suspensions. At some point, your listing is probably going to get suspended. There's what we call soft suspensions and hard suspensions. This is a term that SEOs use. Soft suspension means your listing is still showing up, but you can't make changes to it. A hard suspension means your listing isn't showing up at all, and you've typically done something really bad. So when you get suspended, you have to put your detective hat on, read the guidelines, and figure out what you're breaking. What rule did you violate? Because you did something wrong, unless it was some sort of fluke and there's just a bug or something that Google has suddenly like mass suspended a bunch of listings for no reason. Sometimes that happens, but typically you've done something wrong. So here are some common reasons for suspensions: keyword stuffing, using PO boxes, setting up your listing at a virtual office, Listing your business is 24/7 if you truly do not have someone at your office 24/7. So these are just some more reasons why you could get your listing suspended. Google doesn't tell you why you got suspended because they don't want to let spammers know why they're suspending listings. So again, make sure that you read through the guidelines and fix your listing before you fill out the reinstatement. Do not submit more than one reinstatement. It will slow the process down. And then, yeah. So what did you do wrong? Fix your listing. Do not create a new profile. That will just create more problems because then you'll have a duplicate listing issue and that could suspend both of your listings. Now, I did write an article for Search Engine Journal about what to do if your listing gets suspended. So feel free to read that article as well. That goes into pretty in depth. Almost done, guys. So let me go back to that one if anyone wants to screenshot that. COVID-19. So if you're struggling and your business is going through a hard time, you can mark your business as temporarily closed, permanently closed, and some people may see the option to remove the listing. If you're temporarily closed, your business will still show up, but you'll eventually start losing rankings. But you'll still be showing up as well. And again, there's new options depending on your categories. You can update your service availability but from the homepage, and you'll see different options depending on your category. Is your business still open? Are you offering on-site services? Are you offering online classes? So for instance, if you're in the fitness area, you can now offer online classes as long as they're done live. So Google's really trying to be flexible where they would never even think of offering anything online for a local business. Now they're really trying to make that available to help businesses along because they know that things have changed because of COVID. You can make COVID-19 posts as well. Now, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm almost done. What to do if you have a listing issue? You can email Google support through this URL, and they will, let me go ahead and put that in the, oops, in the chat. Google support will, once you go ahead and go through the process of answering what your issues are, they'll give you different ways to reach out to them. They've, now that they are kind of back online more, you'll get different ways of reaching out to them. The other place you can go after you've reached out to support and let's say they were unable to help you, you can go to the Google My Business forum. That's where product experts like myself and other helpful people volunteer our time to answer questions from merchants and business owners like yourselves or digital marketing agencies that are stuck. Keep in mind that we're volunteers, so please be nice to us. But you can go here and ask your questions and we will go ahead and answer them as best we can. Sometimes if they're big issues, we can even escalate them to Google directly and get a faster resolution in some cases. There is my contact information in case anybody wants to reach out to me, and I am done.
Sherry, thank you so much. That was amazing. Really appreciate your time here. I'm going to, get this recording out to everyone who signed up. We will post it on YouTube. We'll share all the notes and links, obviously. I'll get with you to see if you're willing to share the presentation. If not, you've got a whole ton of information here to watch and rewatch. And, it's probably something that bears repeating many times over. And hopefully you have a good idea, everyone here, about the most important things to focus on. So don't get caught up in trying to eat the elephant all at once, one bite at a time. Sherry really touched on this a lot, but just make sure that you turn it into a habit rather than trying to really gobble it all down at once. It's really a habit. It's something that requires attending to, just like any major business profile that you have. It represents your business. If someone finds you on Facebook, if someone finds you on Google, if someone gets a link to your website, those three sort of leads or referrals experiences should be largely the same. Are you responsive on all those channels? Are you well represented on every channel where you appear online? Make sure that's the case. That should be the habit. And then those channels you own should be within that greater habit. So
Yep.
anything else, please get in touch with Sherry. I will provide her information in the notes and follow-ups as promised. And I just hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. I'm sure you've got a little bit of time now carved out to check out how your Google My Business profile looks, and that'll be time well spent. So take care, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.